listening to the Casting for Fun podcast, the show that talks about entertainment, sports, music, and inspirational stories for all to enjoy. We're glad you could join us today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now, here is your host, Albert Pineda.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Casting for Fun podcast. I am your host, Albert Pineda, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with this episode. This is going to be really cool. My good friend Ryan Ferrante returns to the show, and we have a very soccer-centric conversation on the Casting for Fun podcast. Of course, we do get a chance to discuss Ryan's new career working for Louis Vuitton, but we also discuss on how that enabled him to get to visit Europe last month in October. And of course, he got to visit Paris and Barcelona and got to see FC Barcelona Stadium and have a really great experiences Ryan got to share with me working for Louis Vuitton. And that leads to our soccer conversation because both of us are huge fans of the game. And of course, this is a really exciting time of the year with the World Cup just around the corner. So we talk a lot of soccer stuff. We talk Welcome to Wrexham on the FX network. We talk Ted Lasso from Apple TV Plus. And of course, we give a preview of the World Cup, which is starting next Sunday, a week from today. And we go over the men's national team, Team USA. We're really, really excited. It's going to be a really fun time to be recording episodes. So I hope you guys don't get too bored of me talking soccer, because actually I'm planning to do many episodes analyzing, talking about, having fun, watching the World Cup and getting to talk about it with friends. And I have several friends who I know are going to want to be on the podcast to talk about it. So this is going to be really fun. It's going to be great. Okay, so here is my conversation with Ryan about his career working for Louis Vuitton, getting to visit Barcelona and Paris, and then, of course, talking soccer shows and doing a preview of the World Cup, particularly the men's national team. Returning to the Casting for Fun podcast is my very good friend, Ryan Ferrante. Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
Very good, Albert. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for coming back. I'm really excited to hear about your trip to Europe. It's going to be really exciting and fun. And then I'm really excited to talk soccer with you because there's been some really great soccer shows to talk about. Welcome to Wrexham and then Ted Lasso, which has actually been out for a couple of years now. But then even most exciting of all is that we're just 1 week away from the World Cup. So I'm really, really excited to chat about that with you.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So your trip to Europe is going to tie into soccer talk. So for the listeners who aren't aware, Ryan accepted a new job after he finished his graduate degree with Louis Vuitton, which is actually a pretty fascinating story. So if you could share the story of how you ended up working for this really famous fashion designer.
Okay, yeah. So to think about how it started, I had looking back, I wasn't really even thinking about getting into another company because the company I was working for, I was there for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. But before to make a long story short, one time my wife, Stephanie, I went and took her to the Louis Vuitton store because I wanted to buy her a purse for her graduating, as a graduation gift. Mm-hmm. And she said, it would be pretty cool if you worked for Louis Vuitton because we could get a discount. And, I'm just joking around. But then I was like, you know what? I was kind of looking for jobs. So I said, you know what? Let me go online. I looked online and there was a job and it was very similar to what I did at my other job. So long story short, I interviewed. And I've been with the company with Louis Vuitton for almost 4 months now. So I originally wasn't looking for this. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity, and it's something different, different industry, but I enjoy it. I really do.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And with your employment with Louis Vuitton, you had the amazing opportunity to go visit Europe. So explain to the listeners, why did they send you to Europe and what were you doing there exactly while you were there?
Okay. Yeah. So Louis Vuitton, the company has been around for a very long time. It started in 1854 with Louis Vuitton himself in France. But the way bags and the trunks and the products are made are exactly the same as they were back in the day. So the actual how the items are made are the same. But as you can realize, or as you know, as time goes on, you have to adapt. So the reason why I was in Europe was because we're doing this big project of introducing a new system to manage all of our data. So I was sent to Europe to go to a few of the facilities over there, mainly in Spain, to see how they transition to our new system that we'll be using. So that was a great opportunity for me to say, yes, I'll go. I'll bring all the information back. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to enjoy Europe.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I got to follow your experience through social media, where you posted that you actually got to visit FC Barcelona Stadium. So I definitely want to have a conversation with you about that, or bring that up for a talking point. But along with that, though, what else did you get to see and do while you're in Europe? What other famous destinations did you get to see?
So we flew into Paris, and while I was in Paris, I was there for about 2 days. And I got to do all the touristy things. I was able to go to the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and I was able to just walk around and experience the everything around me. It was a good opportunity to see things in a different way, because you see Paris and the TV and movies, and I was just kind of going in it with an expectation of how it was going to be, and it was very nice. I liked it. I had a great experience, but I did all the touristy things. So I was amongst everybody else. I was there at the Eiffel Tower taking pictures. I was full on tourist mode. So yeah, so that was Paris. And then from there, we flew to Barcelona, and I enjoyed Barcelona a lot. We were there a lot longer. And so I was able to go to the cathedral, the Familia Sagrada, which is this cathedral. It's been there for many years. And then also to, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I was able to go to Camp Nou, which is where FC Barcelona plays. So that was a big highlight of mine, because I really wanted to go there. So I enjoyed that very much.
Awesome. And were they playing by any chance while you were there? Was there any opportunity to catch a game or no?
Yes, there was. And I was a little bummed, because the day that I was flying into Barcelona, they had a Champions League game against Bayern Munich.
Oh, awesome.
And I really was like, oh man, I want to go. But my plane landed at like 8. And I think the games are pretty late at night. They're usually at like 9 o'clock at night. So by the time I left the airport and everything, I was just like, I don't think I'm going to make it. But I was really close on trying to find tickets. And also, too, when I was in Paris, PSG was playing.
Oh, awesome.
And it was also another Champions League game. And I wasn't able to make that either. So, yeah, I really wanted to, but yeah, I didn't get to catch a game.
Oh, there you go. Hopefully next time. Hopefully with work, they're willing to send you out there again, which would be really cool if they do.
Yeah, I hope so. If so, I'm going to definitely try to make a game.
Oh, okay, very cool. And Barcelona is your European team, is that right?
I always, I'm a big fan of just football, soccer in general. While I was on my mission, it was either if you were either a Real Madrid fan or you were a Barcelona fan. I was at the time leaning more Real Madrid, but again, I was a huge fan of like Ronaldinho and Messi, and just that period of soccer was really, I really enjoyed it. So I wouldn't say they were my first team, but I really over the years have really respected them, and I was really looking forward to go visit their stadium.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. So yeah, that brings me now to some soccer talk. I mean, because obviously it's great to see the shows that show European soccer, even if it's like a fictional team like Richmond for Ted Lasso. I still just fascinated by the whole culture. I think it's really, really great. And I got to experience it in South America when I lived in Brazil as a missionary for the church. But I guess the European culture, it's even different there. I don't want to say one is better than the other, really. But even though it's the same game, it's the same beautiful game, the culture is a little different in Europe than it is in South America, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I also lived in El Salvador for my church mission. I went to El Salvador, and soccer was huge. And I could tell just on this trip in Europe, both in Paris and Barcelona, that it's almost like a part of their lifestyle. It's ingrained in them. So there's definitely a huge culture involving around football, soccer. It's part of them for sure.
Yeah. In fact, my experience in Brazil is that the only thing that can maybe come close to soccer is actually novelas, so soap operas. Which is so funny to me that the men and the women, everyone loves soccer there, but in Brazil, and I'm imagining for the rest of South America as well, everybody loves novelas, and they air in prime time there, which is so strange to me.
Yeah, and one of the things I could touch on this a little bit more, but when I took a tour of the stadium at Camp Nou, and I was fascinated with the range. So there was little kids there with jerseys, and they were huge Barcelona fans. And then there was elderly people that were just as big of fans. And it was very interesting on the tour. There was this lady, she might have been in her late 80s. She needed assistance to go on the tour. But I was fascinated with her because she knew like all the players. She knew the history. And you could just tell like the people in Barcelona, and I'm sure in other parts of Europe, that's a part of them. It really is a part of them. And they love the players, and they watch all the games. And when their team wins, they're happy. When their team loses, they're sad. So it's a huge part of their lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah. And then speaking of the rich history, so I want to jump into Welcome to Wrexham first before we get to Ted Lasso. So Welcome to Wrexham was a fascinating concept when I heard about it, that I had heard on social media that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, I'm not sure if I'm only saying his name right. It's unusual. So Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia decided to buy a 4th or 5th division soccer team in Wales. So which is always just a weird concept, but also sounded really cool to me too. So I got to touch on it a little bit when I did a sports podcast with Nick and Tom and our other friend Tyler Ivancic. But I wanted to touch base on it more with you because I know you're a fan of that documentary series as well. So with the Welcome to Wrexham show on FX, what was the appeal to you about that show? What was so interesting to you about a 5th division a Wales soccer team? Welsh, yeah, like
a Welsh.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I really loved it. Of course, I'm a huge fan of It's Always Sunny, and so when I heard that Rob McElhenney, who plays Mac, went in with Ryan Reynolds to buy Wrexham FC, which is in Wrexham in Wales. I was like, okay, I want to watch this. So I love soccer, and I love Rob and Ryan. So I was like, perfect, I'm gonna watch this. And it was I enjoyed it. I really like the way it's put together because the show touches on what it's like to own a soccer team. And also too, like you asked, this is a lower tier soccer team, and they're trying to relegate to the next level because that's how it works in those divisions. So it was very interesting to me to see what they're trying to do to get to the next level. I also really liked how for people who may not be into soccer as much, this show focused on Welsh culture, their culture, the food, the language. And so they did different episodes talking about that. So that was very, very interesting. But overall, I really enjoyed it because I was able to learn more about Wrexham. I honestly didn't know about Wrexham FC. And, just see kind of a small town team. It's not that small, but compared to other, higher level teams, it's compared pretty small. And it was interesting to see like the challenges they have, especially with getting players and making sure that they are winning, and they take you through all that. So I really enjoyed watching that and seeing what the perspective is, almost the perspective as you're one of the owners and you're learning on what they're doing in the moment, like what Rob and Ryan are doing to try to help the team grow.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with everything you just said, Ryan. It was interesting and fascinating to me that two celebrities Rob and Ryan would want to buy a team, but at the same time, you can look at the modern landscape of sports today. A lot of celebrities are going into the ownership game, which is kind of fascinating to see. Like for the longest time, Drew Carey and Will Ferrell were Galaxy season ticket holders, would go to Galaxy games, but then both of them jumped at the opportunity to own MLS teams. So Drew Carey's part of the ownership team for the Seattle Sounders. Will Ferrell's part of the ownership team for that other lane team that I don't like. Even though they're the champions. I'll admit that, yeah, they're the champions of Major League Soccer. But and then even Matthew McConaughey's part of the Austin FC team, ownership team. And then even the women's team, the Angel City FC, as a whole team of celebrity women that are part of their ownership, like Natalie Portman and Eva Longoria, Jennifer Gardner, and probably a few others as well. So I guess that it's not out of the realm of possibility that they would want celebrities would want to jump into that. But I guess we can see, as it's explained in the documentary, that the team was actually in pretty bad financial straits, if I'm not mistaken, and that there may not have been a lot of money going into it. But this documentary series, I think, definitely got a lot of exposure to the team, which is pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you could see in the documentary, in the show, there's times where Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney ask each other, are we making a mistake here, by owning a team? What were we thinking? But you could see that there's so much satisfaction on their end of being a part of the ownership and trying to help out the team. But they really put an emphasis on helping the community, because they know that if the team does well, the community is going to do well. Yeah. And it's true, if you help the community by helping the team. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I thought myself, I was like, why Wrexham? Why would they pick Wrexham? But you can see, and, as you watch the show, you can see what their influence does and how it helps the team. So, yeah, going back to the ownerships, with all these, like you mentioned, the different with MLS and the ownerships. Yeah. I'm thinking that there's more interest now in soccer in the US. I think right now there's a lot of people excited about soccer, which is nice because that wasn't always the case. Yeah. So I think that's why we're seeing more people like celebrities with the resources to go and be part of ownerships.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. What I thought was kind of fascinating though, with the documentary series was it seemed to me that Rob and Ryan are more part of like the operations of the team. Whereas a lot of the owners, I think maybe they just sit back and like, hey, make me money, which I mean, that's not a bad gig to have if you're an owner. So I guess that could be a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how the team is moving forward. This is okay. So minor spoilers about what happens on the show, but unfortunately, I mean, again, if you follow the news, sport news, you would know this, but they didn't make promotion last year, and the show explains that they fell short at the end of the season. But right now, they're actually in second, and they've been on a hot streak. I get updates on my phone because I Google search Wrexham. And now Google thinks I really love the team, so I guess I kind of do. They've been on a hot streak. They've been winning a lot of games. So it looks like the Rob and Ryan experiment, I think, has worked out for the team.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm glad to hear that they're doing well. And I hope that they can get promoted. I always thought that's very interesting how the English and I believe, with Welsh, how they have the whole promotion and regulate or getting demoted and promoted. Yeah. So it makes it super competitive, and I'm glad to hear that they're doing well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to touch on with the documentary series. It's done in a very unique way in that it's, a serious documentary explaining Welsh culture, the show. I mean, I'm explaining the city, the history of the club and like what their players are going through, but it also has the comedic elements to it, which I thought was pretty funny. Like Ryan had mentioned, that Rob and Ryan are kind of second guessing themselves, and Rob asked Ryan Reynolds the question, "Hey, honestly, what's your opinion? Are you upset that I made you do this?" And Ryan Reynolds jokingly responds back, "Oh, my wife hates you now," meaning Blake Lively, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then for the, sorry, Ryan, for the
no.
they had all the celebrities there. So Will Ferrell was there, David Beckham was there, Jason Sudeikis was there, and they scored a goal, but it was offsides, and they didn't know about it in the ownership box. They were just celebrating and hugging each other, and then Rob goes to hug Ryan before he hugs his wife Caitlin, which I thought was really funny. And she even called him out on the Jimmy Kimmel Live when he hosted, called him on about it. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, they have a good dynamic. You can really tell that they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought it's pretty funny because they mentioned the show, like it's Ryan Reynolds and that one guy from that Sunny show.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Ryan Reynolds and that one guy. So they kind of poke at each other, and it makes it funny. It's interesting, and it's also funny. That's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Was there anything else with Wrexham that you wanted to bring up?
No, I just hope that I'm hopeful that there will be more content or more of the show as we see them. I would like to see if they could, and I'm not sure if they are recording, but maybe if they are recording, to see how they're doing this season, and hopefully see them promote to the next division.
I heard there was going to be a season 2, so that should be
cool.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that they are recording and putting together stuff, and yeah, I found myself rooting for them, loving that team. I even bought a T-shirt, so it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So I'm enjoying the Welsh culture and the country of Wales, but I am looking forward to destroying them on the pitch in less than a week.
Yep.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So let's jump into some Ted Lasso talk. So Allison and I are late to the party because it's only after the episode I did talking about Apple TV with you and Stephanie and Eddie and Marcelo that I finally went ahead and caved in and subscribed to yet another streaming service, thinking, oh, do I need another streaming service? Apple TV Plus is actually really cool. So I think people should get it. And the Ted Lasso show, we absolutely loved. It was fantastic. So I wanted to ask you, what were your impressions and feelings? How did you enjoy the Ted Lasso show?
I love it. I love the show. Both Stephanie and I, we enjoy watching it, and I think the main thing about it is you get to know the characters and you love them. And I think because I'm a big fan of soccer, it pulled me in. That's what drew me in, is a show of this American football coach going over to coach a soccer team. I was like, okay, this must be pretty funny, which it is. There's a lot of funny moments, but what I really liked about it too is there was a balance between the funny, where it's funny moments, there's soccer moments, so you see that and how they're doing in their league, but also to the mental health. They touch a lot on that, and that's something that I like too, to just see how these characters are human and how they have their struggles and their challenges. And overall, with all those elements, the funny, the soccer, and the mental health, it's just really balanced. I really like it a lot.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I really enjoyed the arc that happened in season 2. So again, this is going to be spoilers for a little bit of Ted Lasso. But so they sign a Mexican player, Danny Rojas, who I absolutely love. His upbeat attitude is really fun. He just always would yell his catchphrase, "Football is life." Which is, again, perfect example of how ingrained it is into their culture. While taking a penalty kick, he accidentally kills a dog. Which was kind of a funny experience. Like in real life, there was the instance when Randy Johnson obliterated a bird with like a fast ball pitch. Which, I mean, if you wanted to Google search it, you can actually, I think, look it up on YouTube. But, So in the show, Danny accidentally kills a dog, and he's just having a mental breakdown over it. So they hire a therapist, and I forget the therapist's name, but her character was really important throughout the whole show. And then we even get to see how Ted's finally able to open up and explain some of the mental issues he was dealing with. So, like as Ryan mentioned, yes, it is a comedy show, but I think it really dives into who we are emotionally as people. And again, I'm really fascinated and just love the Ted Lasso character, and we get to see his character grow throughout the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I really like Ted's character, played by Jason Sudeikis, because you grow to love him. You want him to succeed. You want him to be happy, because his personality, and I think this is why I like the show so much, is just he's so optimistic. He's he's there to support his players. He's the coach. And I like how they made it at first in the first season specifically, how they were hoping he would fail. And then they just start to see that, like, oh, wow, he is our coach and he could be successful. So I really like that story plot, the initial why they brought him on, and then now why they have him and how he's a good coach. But he actually, just as a fictional character, he's actually very inspirational. Some of the quotes he says and the things he does, you're like, wow, I want to be more like Ted Lasso, Yeah. So I really like that the show isn't just about this comedy about soccer. It's actually a show that you could take something, what they say or do, and you can really actually use it in real life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And on that topic you just mentioned, Ryan, I love the episode from the first season where the ex-husband, Rupert, he's just harassing Rebecca, just being a complete jerk to her. And then like he challenges Ted to a game of darts. And I thought it was really fascinating. So Ted's playing darts and he's explaining him the situation, like you had explained, Ryan, that the people want him to see him fail. He's just a Yankee Doodle dandy from America. He doesn't know anything about soccer. But he mentions the quote from famous poet Walt Whitman, which says, be curious, not judgmental. And I think that's a really great way to live our lives, that if we're curious, we're actually going to dig deeper and find out about people and not just immediately jump to conclusions. So I think that's a valuable lesson that we learn. And in the show, we learned that Ted Lasso, along with being a successful football coach and a successful soccer coach, is also quite the dart player. So he kind of like takes him to school, which is kind of cool to see. So I think it's definitely a very valuable lesson for all of us to learn, that in life we should be curious and not judgmental.
Yeah, and I things like that Ted says, that you're like, oh, that's very inspirational. Also, too, in the very beginning, he puts up that believe sign, and you can tell that the players start to believe. He just set that tone for them. Which was very interesting. My Stephanie, my wife, she was able to go to a premiere of the last season of Ted Lasso.
Oh, cool.
And she was able to meet some of the actor who played Danny Rojas and a few of them. And so we have a little Believe poster, and it's signed by a lot of the cast of it. So I almost want to stick it up on the top of my wall, so when I walk out the door or something out of my office.
Every time you go out. Yeah.
yeah. So I love Ted Lasso. I'm really excited for the new season, and I'm like, I want it to be here now.
Yeah. I had heard rumors, though, that there is a possibility the third season might be the last one. But if it turns out that's the case, I definitely think they'll go out with a bang, and it'll be fantastic, and it'll probably win another Emmy for best comedy series. So.
Yeah, and I don't want to give up too much spoilers, but I really want to know what happens with Nate.
Oh, yeah.
So if no one's watched it yet, that's all I can say. Yeah.
His story arc in the next season is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if there's nothing else with Ted Lasso, I wanted to conclude and jump into some World Cup talk, particularly with the United States men's national team. So the roster came out. Very excited for this roster. I'm going to go through it really fast, just because there's 26 players, which is expanded from the previous World Cup cycles, where I believe there's only 23 on the team. So for the United States, forwards, Christian Pulisic, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent, Tim Weah. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. We or Weah. And Haji Wright, Midfielders, Brendan Aronson, Kellen Acosta, Tyler Adams, Luca De La Torre, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, and Christian Roldan. Christian Roldan repping Pico Rivera, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Defenders, Carmen Carter Vickers, Sergino Des, Aaron Long, Shaq Moore, Tim Ream, Anton Robinson, Joel Scally, DeAndre Yedlin, Walker Zimmerman, and then goalkeepers, Ethan Horvath, Sean Johnson, and Matt Turner. So the team's looking good. There were a few omissions. I know Ricardo Pepe, and what was the name of the other goalie? I forget. There was another notable goalie who was kind of left off the squad, but for the most part, we got our main heavy hitters from Europe. We got Pulisic on the squad. We got Gio Reyna. We got Weston McKennie, and then we got Sergino Des. So I'm looking good. I mean, this team is just getting better and better, and I'm really excited to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a great team. If you look at the roster that you mentioned, there's so many different players from different divisions or different leagues. And I've seen, and I may be wrong, but it feels like this time there's so many more players that are playing over in Europe and other areas of the world that I think will help to get them, they're used to playing with some of the other players, and I think that'll be good. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. And I'm very, very excited. It's almost a week away, or a week and a half away that it starts.
So the first game is November 21st, I believe. So Monday, a week from tomorrow, will be the first game. All the games are at 11 a.m. Pacific time, so our time. So the first game against Wales, and then on Black Friday, which I think is November 25th, that's the big one against England. And then the last game on the 28th, I want to say, I think it's Monday, the following week, that's against Iran. So with all due respect to Wales and Iran, I mean, USA and England are the ones that are going to be coming out of this group.
Yeah, and I think because that's Group B, and I think, like you said, England and in the United States, Wales also too. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. I think this is a very competitive group. I think the United States has the ability to be in the top two. It's going to be a challenge going up against England. I know they're pretty stacked, and they've always been a good team, and Wales too. So I'm eager to see how they do, and I know they can do it. They can do it. Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, I always have fun just watching the World Cup. It's just a blast, regardless of how the USA does. In fact, I remember in 2018 when they didn't qualify for the Russian World Cup, I was like so bummed out, dejected. Like, I'm not going to watch any games. I don't care. But then when they rolled around, I was glued to the TV. So
yeah, me too. And this time around, it's interesting to see the other teams like Italy didn't make it. It's just very interesting, how 1 year or one World Cup, some will make it and some won't. So, from the very start, just so much, these teams had to go through so much to get here, and it'll be exciting to see how hard they play to get to the top.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A few things I wanted to mention about the team, just interesting facts about certain players, which I mean, you could take the time to highlight all 26, but unfortunately we don't really have that much time. So a few highlights for the team. Gio Reyna, he's the very first American to represent the United States, where his father and mother both played professionally representing the national teams, which is really cool. So Claudio Reyna and Danielle Egan, his mom. So that's pretty cool. Haji Wright came through the Galaxy's youth system. So I'm always, excited to see players come through that. But also he's the cousin of Joseph Adai, so former running back for the Indianapolis Colts, which is pretty cool. From this group, DeAndre Yedlin is the only one who has World Cup experience. He got to play on the 2014 team that played in Brazil. So that's pretty cool. That we got a whole group of young guys. It's going to be their first experience for them. And one more fascinating fact I wanted to share in regards to the men's national team for Team USA. Tim Weah, who was born in Brooklyn, is the son of George Weah, who's the first African to win the Ballon d'Or. and is the president of the country of Liberia, which is really cool and fascinating to think that your dad's a world leader and you're playing for our national team. So I'm really looking forward to seeing his contribution to the team as well. And this is actually going to be the second youngest national overall average for age, for at the combined or average age of 25 years, 175 days when they take the field against Wales. So really young, youthful team, a team that I suspect we'll get to see for the next couple of World Cup cycles, which will be really exciting and fun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It seems like they're building up a team for a long term, and we'll see a lot of these guys play for the long term, which will be really nice because as time goes on, of course, they're going to get closer and closer. And as we already see, they're already a great team. So I'm very eager to see what they're going to do. I know a lot of people, everybody has their predictions of who's going to win the World Cup and what the best teams are. But I really do feel like the U.S. is going to, for the most part, make it as far. They'll make it pretty far. I really do feel that. Of course, I would love for them to win the World Cup. And so I have hope and faith in them that they could play these tough teams and they can compete and they could really go out there and compete.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then speaking of that, I wanted to actually just mention one last thing for the World Cup. So, like in a Madden NFL, the video game simulator, they can actually simulate who they predict would win the Super Bowl when they have the teams that are going to be playing in it. So my understanding was, I saw this online. Apparently FIFA, the soccer video game by EA, who also does the Madden game, did a simulation to predict the winner for the World Cup this year. And they're predicting that Argentina is going to beat Brazil in the final by a score of 1-0. So we'll see. This is being recorded and documented for the podcast. I'm planning to do episodes talking about analyzing each World Cup, not each game, but probably like once or twice a week, which will be really fun. So we'll see when the final happens, who the actual teams are. But again, according to EA's FIFA game, they're predicting that Argentina is going to win.
And it's interesting because I believe I read somewhere that it said that FIFA, the video game, predicted the last 4 World Cup winners, and they were correct. So I'm interested to know. I know with Argentina, they're highly favored, because of Messi.
Yeah.
And of course, Brazil and France are always high, top rated. So I think what FIFA had Argentina winning it, and then I think second place was going to be Brazil and France in third place. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this actually comes, if it really does happen this way. I hope the US could make it that high. But yeah, we'll see. It's interesting how they predict this and how they measure out everything. So yeah, we'll see.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then also, just to finish that thought, the video game simulator for FIFA is also predicting that the US is going to make it to the quarterfinals, which is pretty exciting. So the final 8 teams. So that means that they're actually going to be going further. They're predicting they're going to go further than England or anyone else from their group, and further than any other CONCACAF team. So further than Mexico, further than Canada, further than Costa Rica. So it's going to be exciting. We're going to get some great soccer in the next month. And regardless of who wins, that's always just a fun experience for me to sit down and watch the games and cheer for your favorites. And yeah, let's have a blast.
Yeah. And it's so much fun. I really enjoy how everybody kind of comes together. Whether they root for the same team or not, everybody's excited. And I really enjoy that about the World Cup, is just everybody's watching. The whole world is watching. So, it's very interesting to me. And I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's pretty much all the talking points I had, Ryan. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up, either about the World Cup, about Wrexham or Ted Lasso, or your visit to Europe?
No, I just thank you for having me on. Like I said, I'm super excited for the World Cup, and I feel like it can't be here soon enough. I just wanted to be here now. So I'm excited for it, and we'll definitely have to talk about it while it's happening, Albert. And it'd be interesting, it'd be interesting to see with, all those who are listening and those, between you and I and others, like if we can make some sort of like our predictions, our bracket, and see who's the closest maybe.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So for the listeners, I hope you guys don't get too irritated with me. But again, I'm planning to do several episodes during the next month, because I mean, this is going to be like the thing that's like taking over my life. But, yeah, it would be fun to, do a bracket and just, that'd be really cool to see how we do. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for joining me tonight. I'll definitely touch base with you, and then we can maybe even get Sean on and Eddie. And I have a few other guests too that I know are really huge soccer fans that are going to want to talk about it. So I'm probably going to be doing, like I mentioned, multiple episodes over the next month, just talking about everything going on with the World Cup.
Well, thank you, Albert. Enjoyed talking, and go Team USA.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so you've been listening to the Casting for Fun podcast. Thank you, everybody.